Uniswap, one of the leading decentralized exchanges, surprisingly just announced that they started restricting access to a small number of tokens. And at first, this does not make any sense because Uniswap is decentralized, meaning anyone can use it and any token can be listed on Uniswap. But right now we are seeing that they are restricting and removing assets. So is Uniswap actually decentralized? But even more important than that, does decentralization even exist? Is decentralization a myth? Let's get into the content. Welcome aboard the Bitcoin Express. My name is Chase. Let's get to it. Uniswap claims to be a decentralized trading protocol, but they just restricted access to certain cryptocurrencies, including assets such as synthetics and UMA protocol. And this is all happening right now due to regulation. Over the last year, we have seen that the regulators are not a fan of any assets that may be considered securities. And when it comes to assets such as synthetics or UMA protocol, these are synthetic assets that are tied to real world assets, and these real world assets may be securities. So what happened? Uniswap decided to restrict access to these tokens. And at first, you're going to hear the story and say, wow, Uniswap is not actually decentralized. But there are two parts to this. When it comes to Uniswap, there is Uniswap, the protocol, and then there is Uniswap Labs, the company. Uniswap, the protocol, is decentralized, smart contracts running on Ethereum. And Uniswap Labs, the company, is centralized. And you can still trade these assets, but it won't be as easy or as simple. Uniswap did not delist these assets from trading, but users can still trade the assets affected via contracts, decentralized interfaces, or aggregators. The liquidity still exists, and it seems this is an attempt to make these assets more difficult to access. And this is a problem. In crypto, there are two parts. There is the protocol, and then there is the user interface. What makes it easy for us to have access to these cryptocurrencies and to these protocols? This would be similar to saying that Bitcoin is not decentralized because exchanges such as Coinbase, Kraken, and Binance no longer allow trading. Remember, there is the protocol, decentralized, and then the company, the front end, which is centralized, and the Uniswap website belongs to the Uniswap company, Uniswap Labs, which is centralized, meaning that they're able to change the interface. Uniswap Labs is as centralized as it gets. Remember, not the protocol, but the company. They are located in Brooklyn, New York. They have employees. If there's any legal issues, you can go directly after the team. And this is a problem in crypto in general. We have a lot of decentralized protocols and smart contracts, but the user interfaces, the applications we actually use to access these applications, are centralized at the moment. And as this tweet states, the world needs decentralized interfaces. So I hope this is something that we see in the future. Remember, two parts. There is the backend, the protocol, decentralized, and then the interface, what you actually use to get to those applications. That is centralized for now. So when it comes to Uniswap, is it 100% decentralized? Of course, the answer is no. There are aspects of centralization. But more than Uniswap, does 100% decentralization even exist in crypto? In my opinion, it does not. Even the most decentralized cryptocurrencies have aspects of centralization. Even when we talk about Bitcoin, my favorite cryptocurrency, the name of this channel is the Bitcoin Express, but there are parts to it that make it centralized. Let me explain. When it comes to cryptocurrency, they all start out centralized. Over time, as they grow, they become decentralized. There's no other way around it. If you think about it, what is a blockchain? A blockchain is people or nodes coming to an agreement. And when you talk about Bitcoin or Ethereum, two of the most decentralized protocols today, in the very early days, how many people were running a node? 1, 2, 5, but over time, it grew. And in the early days of Bitcoin, there is something that happened that not many people know about. And even the people that do know about it, they don't want to talk about it because it was very, very bad. On August 8th of 2010, there was a block that had somehow contained 92 billion Bitcoin. This is a problem. Bitcoin is only supposed to have 21 million Bitcoin. So now 92 billion Bitcoin, this is a big, big problem. So what did the Bitcoin community do at that time? The community simply hit undo, jumping back to the point in the blockchain before the hack occurred and starting anew from there. Quote, "It was the worst problem ever." So at that moment, this was centralized. They reversed the blockchain, but of course Bitcoin grew, and today it is the most decentralized network in the world. And this is how most projects are. They have to start centralized and they grow to become decentralized. And I always say one of the luxuries that Bitcoin had that I think no one will ever have is that they were able to grow under the radar. Even in the early days when it was, of course, centralized, no one really knew what Bitcoin was or cryptocurrency, so it was able to grow without anyone coming to attack Bitcoin. But today, if you launch a project and you are centralized and you get attacked, it's game over for you. And it's not just Bitcoin, Ethereum as well. I would say the second most decentralized cryptocurrency today was very centralized in the beginning, but it grew over time. In 2016, we all know about the famous DAO hack, a smart contract hack where multiple millions of dollars were lost. So what happened? Ethereum broke off. So the Ethereum that we know today is actually a fork of the original Ethereum, which is Ethereum Classic, and they reversed the transactions, which people were very upset about because the whole point of blockchain and cryptocurrency is that once something happens, you can't reverse it. And this only was possible because back then in 2016, Ethereum was very centralized, but this would not happen today. If money is lost today on Ethereum, you can't undo it. You can't reverse it because it has grown to become so decentralized. And even today, when we talk about Bitcoin, which I did say is my favorite cryptocurrency, the name of this channel is the Bitcoin Express, there still are aspects of centralization. For example, Bitcoin mining. We know that over the last few years, it's been a big topic. China Bitcoin mining. Is it centralized? And we always said that it wasn't until this year we actually saw that when China banned Bitcoin mining, the hash rate dropped significantly. And this proved that there was an aspect of centralization to Bitcoin. But the thing about decentralization is that it doesn't mean that if you are attacked, it's game over. What it means is that if one point fails, someone else will pick up. If one miner goes down, another miner will pick up. So even though we saw this extreme decrease in the hash rate, we are seeing that it's starting to pick up and it's still very secure. Look at Bitcoin over the years. This is where we are right now with hash rate. Even in 2018, when it was much lower, we were very secure because Bitcoin has gotten to the point where even if one country bans Bitcoin, another country will pick up. Even if miners are shut down, other miners will pick up. And when we look at the rest of the cryptocurrency space, it goes through a similar story. They all start out centralized and they're all working right now to move towards decentralization. And after Bitcoin and Ethereum, I'm not sure if any of these other cryptocurrencies are truly resilient at the moment. This, of course, will change over time. And Bitcoin and Ethereum today are very hard to take down, but when we look at these other cryptocurrencies, there is a higher probability. Let's take Cardano for an example. I'm a big fan of Cardano. I make a lot of videos about Cardano, but what if something happened today to Charles Hoskinson? What if he was just removed? He no longer existed. What would happen to Cardano? It surely would have an impact on the project. What about Polkadot? What if something happened to Gavin Wood? What if he was completely removed from the world? What happens? It will have an impact on the project. So all of these projects, even if they're decentralized, there are aspects of centralization. And I think a good example to look at is Thorchain. Thorchain is making it possible now to do cross-chain swaps, native swaps, Bitcoin for Ethereum, Ethereum for Litecoin, and so on. But they recently experienced an exploit and $7.6 million was drained. And shortly after, the protocol was paused. And people were saying the project is centralized, but there are two ways to look at centralization. Either number one, there is one central coordinator who can pause the project, and the other side of the argument is a small network of people that can come to an agreement very quickly. And that's what happened with Thorchain. They're still growing. Like we said, projects start out centralized and they grow decentralized. And right now, because the network is smaller, they're able to come to these agreements quicker. And I want to come back to what I said about Charles Hoskinson and Gavin Wood. You might be listening and saying, well, what if something happens to Vitalik Buterin? Wouldn't this impact the project? It probably would, but not as big of an impact as these other projects because it has gotten to the point where Vitalik, I wouldn't say is irrelevant, but he doesn't have the same power with Ethereum that he had many years ago. It's gotten to the point where Vitalik has proposed many Ethereum improvement proposals for now 2 to 3 years, and they still have not been implemented, right? Vitalik, back then he had the power. Today he is slowly losing it. And this is what happens with decentralization. If something were to happen to Vitalik today, yes, there probably would be a dip in the market, but Ethereum would continue to survive. And this is how these cryptocurrencies work: centralized, and then they become decentralized over time. Now the test, the battle, is they need to be able to make it from centralization to decentralization without any major attacks along the way. And when we look at cryptocurrency for the long term, there are 2 things to look at in terms of investing. The first one is the one we all know. Will it be adopted? If it's not going to be adopted, not a good investment. If it's going to be adopted, of course, it's going to be a great investment. But another question that we often overlook is, will the project become decentralized? As stated, many start out centralized and they grow over time to become decentralized. You can have a project that has a lot of adoption that is also somewhat decentralized, and it can still gain value from an investment perspective. And I think a good example is something like VeChain. VeChain has been growing with adoption, and hopefully it will grow over the next 10 to 20 years. But the thing about VeChain is that it is a semi-permissioned blockchain, partially centralized. And this is not an opinion, this is objective, and this is coming directly from VeChain. And it is because of the consensus protocol they use, proof of authority. This is the trade-off that they make in order that they are scalable and have cheap transactions. So over the next 10, 20 years, we will see many projects being adopted. And when it comes to decentralization, will anything be 100% decentralized? I'm not so sure. But if it has a high level of decentralization, it will likely do well from an investment perspective. But if something is adopted and has no level of decentralization in 10 or 20 years from now, it's nothing special. It's the same thing as the companies we have today, such as Amazon, Google, or Apple, and so on. So to recap, I don't believe there is anything in this space that is 100% decentralized. There will always be aspects of centralization, but the key in the long run is to have a project with adoption that has a high level of decentralization. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.